Oh, it's down to me, is it? Okay. Well, hello and welcome. I'm with Kylie Fowler again for another run through of our software asset management processes. And this month we're going to be looking at the software removal process. So last month we looked at the software recycling and optimization process. One thing we didn't touch on is when it actually comes to the point of recycling the software, if we have hit that last one or two of a given instance and we're going down the removals process, we've got a slightly different activity that we need to engage in to make sure that we're addressing the idea that we're removing the software and we're not bringing it back. So we're not leaving it on the catalogue for selection in the future.
But it's not just about when you're down to onesies, twosies. It may be that the enterprise architects have decided that they no longer want the software within the organisation, or it may be triggered because we've upgraded software and we need to get rid of old versions of the software, for instance. So there's any number of reasons why we may decide to uninstall some or all of the software within the organisation. So this process could be used for, say, the uninstall of software as a result of, say, a joiners, movers, leavers process. But actually, the bigger picture for this process is very much about technology has marched on, we're getting rid of the older stuff so that we no longer need to manage it. So there's loads of benefits of removing software that are underplayed. You know, it's something that often gets forgotten. And I would say that when you are sitting on your governance boards and things, so, you know, if you see a project or a program that is clearly adding or replacing software, ask the question, well, what are you doing with the old software? You know, we need to include getting rid of the old software in this program or project. When you see a solutions design coming through and at the architectural review board, again, ask the question, well, what about the old software? We need to take that off. How's that going to work? So you know, part of your role as assurance and of achieving the outcomes that your organisation wants to achieve for its software asset management system is very much asking those questions around, well, what are we getting rid of? Yeah.
So if you do want to keep your IT estate lean, this is one of the tools in your armoury to enable you to do that. So I would make sure that we haven't touched yet on the create, maintain operations plan, have we? SAM plan. So
not yet, no.
I would make that potentially one of your operational goals in an attempt to keep the IT estate lean, because the smaller you keep your scope, the easier your job will become. And one of the ways of doing that is by uninstalling software.
And not just your job as a software asset manager, everybody's job. Everybody's job to maintain that estate.
Yeah.
All your costs will be lower. You know, so it's well worth, as the software asset manager, making that point at every time there's an opportunity at the, you know, those governance boards and those where you're assuring things, to say, hang on, what should we remove? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Because it all too often gets forgotten.
Yeah. And the worst thing is too, and I've seen it particularly in risk averse organisations such as financial institutions, when there is a periodic review of the IT estate and we've got sort of legacy software that's been bouncing around for 15, 20 years, nobody's gone anywhere near it. Why? Well, if we uninstall it, then the sky can fall down. We don't know what it's for. So if those questions were asked, shall we say, maybe 12 months after the installation, it could have been, oh, we don't need it anymore, so we can set about the uninstallation. Instead, we've been paying 19 years of support and maintenance.
No, absolutely. It's so common. It's really common. And it drives everybody crazy. You know, not just software asset managers, but absolutely everybody. But nobody systematically does anything about it. So that's something we need to do. So we identify what we want to remove, and then we do all the communications required to allow us to remove it without anybody getting upset, and then we remove it. And just as with any other change that we're making, we need to go through change management, we need to make sure that we're doing this safely. We also need to make sure that we're verifying that the removal has happened. So there's that delivery assurance piece as well that needs to happen.
Oh, your favourite phrase.
I know. I get to use it so many times. It's great.
So rather than, as per with the recycling process, we kind of just sort of hand it out to other processors at the end of that activity, of the recycling activity, one thing that it distinguishes this process, the removals process from the recycling process, is that we update our CMDB schema. So it's not just a case that we're uninstalling software off the IT estate, we're also actually saying that our IT services are fundamentally changing, and therefore the CMDB needs to reflect that update accordingly. And subject to that change having been driven through, the update to the CMDB schema and the configuration of that, we also need to update our supported software catalogue to say then that the software is,
legacy.
Is legacy.
You're not allowed to use it anymore.
That's it.
Or it's legacy exception, and you're only allowed to use it in very limited circumstances. Yeah. So it does feed off to some other processes, though, and probably the biggest one and the most important one is the contract management process, because there may be a contract that needs to be terminated or a renewal that needs to be terminated off the back of this, because otherwise you're not realising all of the benefits of getting rid of the software.
Yeah, I mean, pop quiz to the viewers out there is, how many times have you cancelled a software contract and not actually thought to remove the software because, we can't be bothered. You're just, that is like a red rag to a bull to a software vendor. Then at that point, potentially you're just inviting an audit, and there's nothing worse than finding software on the estate after the contract has
that's why delivery assurance is so important.
God.
I got to use the word again.
Again?
It's a phrase, really, isn't it?
This is a phrase, yeah.
Cool. Right,
So,
well, that's it, really.
Yeah, no, we have it in the hardware disposal process as a nested process of that. Because again, if you're just back to our sort of hardware asset management days, you want to make sure that you're not sort of throwing away software when you're throwing away your hardware as well. So just make sure you purge your devices properly then.
That's it.
But other than that, I think that's it.
No, that's it.
Happy days.
Great. Thank you. See you later.
Take care.